Whether you're seeking inspiration, wisdom, or a fresh perspective on leadership and entrepreneurship, the Building Interest podcast has you covered. Together, we explore the successes of groundbreaking leaders, the triumphs, challenges, and invaluable lessons they learn along the way. Our discussions go beyond strategic decision-making and delve into the personal hobbies and passions that keep these leaders inspired and grounded in their work. I'm your host, Greg Farber. Let's jump right in. Today's episode is a special one for us. We're joined by a husband and wife duo known as the power couple of weather here in New England. Together, they have delivered more than 200,000 meteorology broadcasts and, in 2024, co-founded and launched their own weather company, 1 Degree Outside. With a combined 40 years of experience in the meteorology space, I am super excited to welcome Matt and Danielle Noyes to the Building Interest podcast.
Thank you very much. We're thrilled to be here.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
Oh, super exciting. This is a new topic for us. This is a new direction. We've never covered the weather on our podcast before.
Huh?
Although it's not going to be accurate by the time we put this out. The weather will have changed.
We'll find out whether we were right or wrong if you ask us for forecasts.
There you go. What's it look like outside?
Yeah, right.
So let's start this by going back a little bit to when you were younger. Was weather always your dream? Was that always something that you were interested in? Or how did you get sort of the spark to jump into weather?
So I will say I blame my family. My grandparents, my parents were always like a little obsessed with the weather. So as a child, I grew up like interested in it because of them. That being said, once I was hooked on it, like when I was probably 7, last hurricane that hit New England, Hurricane Bob, that was when something really clicked for me. I feel like as a 7-year-old, I was like, wait, we can get hurricanes, here in New England. So living in Weymouth, which is south of Boston, I said to my parents, can we go to the beach? And they said, sure. So they took my sister and I in the car. We went down to Wessagusset Beach. They didn't let us get out of the car. But I remember seeing like the power of Mother Nature, the waves, the wind blowing. And that was kind of it for me. I loved weather, loved thunderstorms, loved watching the Weather Channel, which we didn't have cable growing up.
Right.
So when I went to my friends' houses, that's where I was like, can we watch the Weather Channel?
And you weren't scared at all. You were just fascinated.
No, always fascinated
Awesome.
by it.
And we had a similar kind of start with our love for weather. But
were you on the beach too in a different car that day?
No, I was actually growing up in Haverhill, which is very much not on the beach,
Not on the
but
coast, right.
near the Merrimack River. And so for me, it was a hurricane too. But being 5 years older than Danielle, it was Hurricane Gloria, which came exactly about 6 years sooner, I guess. 1985 is when we got Hurricane Gloria. I just thought it was the most amazing, awesome, powerful thing to watch. My dad's apple tree split in half. Our driveway washed out. We had no power for like 11 days out of that. It was incredible stuff. But if you had asked me then, was I going to have our own weather company sometime in the future? I would have told you absolutely not. Weather's just something cool to look at, at the time.
Now, did you have like role models or idols on TV or something that you sort of followed as you were developing this passion for weather? I know you said you didn't have the Weather Channel, but maybe later on or...
Right, so later on, I feel like Mish Michaels was one of the meteorologists that I was looked up to because she was one of the only female meteorologists at the time that was on TV. That being said, anybody that was on the Weather Channel when I went to my friends' houses, I thought that's really cool because they were out in these storms in different parts of the country. Mish Michaels, though, was definitely one of my role models growing up.
And, our role models came within the same weather center, if you talk about professional role models. So when I was growing up, I didn't want to be a meteorologist. If you had asked middle school Matt, are you going to be a meteorologist someday? I would have said, no, I like the weather. If you'd asked high school Matt.
What'd you want to be?
I wanted to be a state trooper like my dad, or I wanted to be a doctor. Okay. When I went off to high school, I had decided I had settled on, okay, no, I want to be a doctor. That was it, right? In fact, there's even a journal entry from my sophomore year where you had to write about what you're going to be. And I said, I love the weather. It's a great hobby, but it'll never be my career. I will never make that my job. And it was probably sometime around junior to senior year of high school that I started thinking, wait a minute, I could actually make my hobby my job. I could have fun every day and get paid to have fun every day. It had never occurred to me. I had just grown up thinking that your job is your job and what you enjoy in life is something totally separate.
Right.
And it was in that moment toward the end of high school that I said, this could be incredible if I could make my hobby my job. And that's where I decided, no, I'm going to make weather my living, my life, Yeah. But Harvey Leonard was my role model. He, when I sent a letter out to all the stations at the time, and there were fewer then than there are now in Boston, I heard back from all 3 of the major stations. 2 of them said, sorry, we don't take high school kids. Come back when you're in college. Harvey said, sorry, we don't take high school kids. Come back when you're in college, but wait. I want you to come into the station, come in with your parents. I'll show you around. We can spend the day together.
Oh, awesome.
And so then he, when I went off to college, followed me there in terms of sending me an email. I see that you're studying meteorology. I'm so proud of you. Do you still want that internship? just a super, super nice person.
Wow,
So
that's
has
awesome.
always been my role model since then.
Now, Danielle, you briefly mentioned they're going out and standing in the storm and doing the reporting and everything.
Yep.
Have either of you ever been assigned that, where you go out and you stand in the storm?
A few times I was on the South Shore. One in particular I remember was in Scituate when we had a nor'easter coming in. I think it was back in 2015 because I had just gone to Channel 4. And there was like a moderate coastal flooding event, and we had to sleep over at one of the like little houses that was literally right on the coast.
Not like in a concrete hotel 3 floors up.
No.
Like down right on the
Like,
coast in a house
this
that's going to
woman,
wash
like
away.
a little bed and breakfast, and I was in this room, and I remember the whole house was like shaking through the overnight as the waves were crashing in. We actually ended up having to move our vehicles like the next day back because when the high tide was coming in. But that night I didn't sleep too much because the wind was blowing the whole building.
But then you went on to find out from her and from other folks that that's everyday life.
That's like a
during
regular
storm
thing
for anyone
for them.
who lives right there at the beach.
100%.
Yeah, totally.
Anytime they have that, that's just regular.
It's just how they live it.
Yeah, exactly.
The price you pay for living in that location.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's beautiful, though,
Yep.
right? It's beautiful. Yeah, for me, my days of standing out in the storms ended really early in my career here in Boston. I came, and it wasn't long before I was in front of the weather maps all the time. But the Merrimack River floods of 2005, I actually went out down to the river and actually went out with some of the crews that were making these rescues house to house and was on board some of the big flatbed trucks. They went and pulled people out of the apartments, and really that's because I'm a Merrimack Valley guy. So it was folks that I knew that were out there doing the work and making the rescues. So I went down there and I gave them some briefings on the river. Was out there with them for that. That might have been the last time I think that I was actually out on location, so to speak, during a storm. The rest of it, I was always in the weather center.
It's kind of exciting and sounds terrifying, but also really
was
exciting and a great way to contribute to the community, right? If you know it and you know how to give them advice and things.
That's it. That's been kind of a big thing for both of us, lifelong from around here, you know?
So now back in the studio for a little bit as you're building your careers. Now, I've heard and I can only imagine that broadcast meteorology, and I'm going to mess that word up 100 times,
That's all right. Everybody
Tough
does.
to say.
can really be a very high pressure environment. In other words, I'm sure something goes wrong sometimes.
What do you think once in a while?
So I'm wondering, kind of as you're building your careers and you're new to this and you're kind of making your name here in the Boston scene, do you have any memorable moments or funny stories you can share where, it just did not work the way that it was supposed to?
Oh, I can think of many.
Can you? Yeah.
Turning a microphone off just for a second when you're either going to the bathroom or doing something and then go back in the studio, your microphone's off, dropping the clicker, which meteorologists
sure, doing that
hold
live on air. Yeah.
Live on
So
air.
you control your own
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you drop the clicker. Oh, hold on a sec. I got to pick that up.
Didn't you have one where you had a fly that was flying around you?
there was
Didn't that go kind of almost
that,
viral?
That was
on,
really bad. Yeah,
That sounds
there
like
was
a fun one.
There was I don't like bugs, but there was a fly when I was doing a live weathercast that came right at my forehead, and I actually went, and kind of moved out of the
In the middle of
way,
the
and then it
weathercast.
ended
That
up
was
being on
great.
YouTube.
You've
silly
had a lot,
stuff from-
You've had a lot of fun moments like
You
that.
have too. Remember that?
Well, mine was. What were you going to say?
I was
I'm
going to say,
sorry.
remember that time you danced on you did like
Well,
that
we used to have some fun stuff. When I was on the morning show, we would have a lot of fun with, we did dance off on Fridays. That was a good time years ago. I'm thinking of the time that I was new in the business. All right, I was only probably 21, 22, and I was talking about how the jet stream was going to shift south. The problem was when I said it on air, the F in shift didn't come out. And so then I'm mortified. And I'm like, oh no, folks, I am so sorry. I did not mean to say that. And now I'm so nervous. And I go,
You're
what I meant to say was the jet stream's gonna, and I did it again.
Nice.
And then I
Excellent.
said, no, wait, it's gonna move south. It's gonna move south. So that was my first and only swear.
Move
on
is a
air
good
live.
word.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
That's awesome.
Which was kind of going to be the follow-up to where I was
Yeah.
going with that question. How did that help you overcome sort of obstacles and roadblocks? And I mean, looking at you guys now, you're so comfortable and so casual. Like, I feel like if you did that now, you would just roll right on.
Yeah.
Is that just a matter of time? Is that...
No, you know what? You bring up a really great point, and this ties into our business at One Degree Outside too, right? Because you have to make this acceptance. I was always a perfectionist. I mean, I grew up the son of a state trooper and a school teacher, right? And so they were very, there was right and there was wrong, and I was a perfectionist. I wanted to do everything right. Going into meteorology, being a perfectionist is a really bad choice. But it can also be a really liberating choice if you let it. So in those moments of the jet stream doing whatever it was south, right, at the same time, you realize that you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to speak perfectly every time. You're not going to forecast perfectly every time. And that's life. And that's life no matter what we do.
It doesn't matter.
That's it. That's it. You move past it. So for me, those type of experiences were really liberating, and that I discovered early on, which would go to be things like you forecast 1.5 inches of snow and you get 13 inches. Happened to me in upstate New York one time. But you realize you have to let yourself off the hook every now and again, or you're going to drive yourself crazy.
And we'll get into some of the more details on weather, but I'm assuming
I'm sure
that
we
if
will.
the model tells you 1.5 inches, what else are you supposed to do?
Well, we can talk about that. We can talk about
You
that.
can't just imagine it's going to be 13 inches randomly.
Pretty true, yeah.
Definitely. I would say it helped me develop thick skin too. When I first started,
Yeah.
similarly, when I first, the first couple of years I was on air, I had clammy hands, and you remember this. Every time I was nervous, I was fumbling words as well, and people write in, and say stuff about that. But and at first I was like, oh no, they really, they care. I'm getting all these emails. I need to change this, and it just makes you think like you're human. You make mistakes too. It's a learning process, and maybe don't care as much about what others think, and
Right.
helps you in that respect in terms of developing thick skin and just moving forward.
How are your hands now? Are they clammy? Nope. You're
They're
doing
pretty
great.
dry.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're good.
Awesome. So let's come to 1 degree outside.
Sure.
So I got to start with the name.
Okay.
Is there a specific backstory to this, or is it just that conveniently 75 degrees outside and sunny was already taken?
I love that.
That's great.
No, you're right on the money with thinking there's something behind it, because there absolutely is, right? So really the thought process behind this is that we are going to tell you that we are going to be as accurate as anyone's going to be. And we mean that, right? And we have the numbers to back it up. But we also are really honest about the fact that you're never going to be perfect all the time in weather. Sometimes you're going to be 1 degree outside, right? So that was a part
That's
of it.
what it is.
That was a
so
part
it's
of
not outside, it's outside the
That's
data.
it. It's combining humility with accuracy, saying, yeah, we're going to be accurate, but we're humble enough to say we're not going to be dead on every single time, right? Because nobody is. The outside part does play into it, though, because a lot of people, what are we appealing to, right?
I mean, people who are outside all the time.
Right.
Here in New England, I feel like a lot of people, are obsessed and really love the weather, and it revolves around our daily lives. No matter what season we're in,
Right.
we're outside skiing, or we're planting, or we're going to the beach, or it really.
Weather here doesn't seem to stop people from doing what they
No,
want to do. They're
exactly.
just part of it.
So
That's
that's
right.
the outside part of that.
That's right. And, I'd love to say that we thought of it all on our own. We have 3 great business advisors. One of them is Larry Gulko, who has a company, Brand New Day. And so his whole thing is about branding. And so he was great at guiding and leading our discussion about, okay, so where do you want to be? What do you want to convey? We would answer those questions. And then we kind of all together landed on, well, this kind of conveys all those things. And it seems to be taking off. People seem to really
I love
like the
it.
name.
I love it.
I'm glad.
And I'm glad I asked, because I thought it was just a reference to temperature. I did not realize
Nope.
that there was
More
also
than that.
this humility data
That's
aspect
right.
to it. I
You
love
got it.
Now, what made you want to go off and do this on your own in the first place?
Well,
Or can you say?
Oh no, certainly. I know. Look, it's I only look at Danielle and smile because she's been wonderful about kind of 100% coming on board and being a
Yes.
part of this, And at the same time, though, in the beginning, it was kind of I was at the height of my career at NBC and NECN. I'd been there for 22 years, 25 in broadcast. Things were going great. But the interesting thing was that, Greg, back in 2023, there was a YouGov poll that came out that showed that for the first time, only 47% were getting their weather from local news. And the reason that's important is because it was the first time ever in history.
Everyone's on their apps now,
Yes.
or whatever else. Okay.
Never before had less than half turned to local television news. So I said, look, we're at this interesting crossroads, right? I could ride this into the sunset and have a nice, comfortable
Right.
end of the career, and that'll be great. That's just not what I always love to do. I always love to be on the cutting edge. And so, while I cherish all of my years in television, it was absolutely beautiful, and they're still serving a tremendously important need. At the same time, I said, if folks are going digital, and these are the people who helped me build my career and my life, it seemed like the right thing to do, to try something, to be on the cutting edge. And so I said, I think this is the time to do it. And Danielle is tremendously supportive in almost anything and everything, but particularly when it comes to the crazy imaginative ideas. And so you said, yeah, let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
And
YOLO.
That's right.
Really.
Yeah.
That's right. And you kept
Now's the
freelancing for a while longer on television.
Still
And
doing-
radio. You're still
and
on
radios.
WBUR and all that, right? But really within the last few months, you've gone 100% on board with this too.
We're
and
in
we're
it.
just
Awesome.
we're charging forward.
Now, what have you learned as entrepreneurs kind of along the way?
I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe Danielle,
Yeah,
you more
absolutely.
since you kind of hung out for a little bit. And
I was going to say it's a balancing act, right? So we wear many hats as a bootstrapped startup. There are unique challenges, but I would just say, for me personally, it's balancing it all. We have 3 kids.
Right.
So on top of that, it's trying to figure out, who's getting the kids today, who's taking we're packing the lunchbox. Oh, someone's sick this week.
Right.
Balancing the family and the business has been probably one of the most challenging parts for me.
You're not just the CEO and the data guy and the janitor. You're also the parents.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yep.
No, that you put it perfectly. I mean, that I think is the biggest challenge for us, is that when a kid is sick, you just lost 50% of your workforce, right?
Right.
And so it's like so the nice thing is neither one of us ever had a problem with work ethic. Neither one of us had a problem complaining about the fact that we had too much workload. We just take it on and do it. So
Right.
for us to carry load for each other is not really that big of a change
Well,
from
it's
what we're used to
easy
doing.
when you have a teammate.
Do you have a little bit more flexibility in that you're not tied to a studio schedule?
100%.
Even though,
Yes.
the weather still has to
Yes.
be predicted when it's happening.
Well, and one of the
Can't
things,
just take a whole day off.
That's right. No, exactly. Right. And so, for example, coming here to see you today, we made sure that we got our videos out before we came
Yep.
in. Right. But one of the things that for me has been really liberating is when you have a day that's quiet with sunshine, right? We can focus on business building after we take care of the weather. So we're not still doing 30 or 40 weathercasts in a row
Right.
all morning into the afternoon. On a quiet day, it's all right, here's your weather. You've got it. We'll move on.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and-
you always have something you can use to build forward.
That's right.
100%.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
That's great.
again, to being on the cutting edge, to moving forward, it's nice to have that ability to do that instead of just be caught in the loop again and again.
Same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Not that anymore.
After a bit of a rough start today, it's turning out to be a sunny day.
know.
So what's next for 1 Degree Outside? What are you going to be working on this afternoon?
Oh, that's great question. So look, we've got basically 2 prongs in our business. One is the part that you see, the public-facing part. That is where we have our app and our website and all of our videos that go out on the YouTube channel and all that.
And anybody
So
can access those.
That's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
And with this being, there's a lot of, I know folks that really follow you guys who are looking at kind of the business angle of things and growth of business, et cetera. So it's important to say that one of the first questions we always get is, so what's your business model with this? Because the app is totally free, right? So how do you make money and how do you survive? So the answer through that is, for the app side of it, the public-facing side, it's about partnerships and sponsorships. So you will see, for example, various great partners that show up through the app. CrackX, which is New England waterproofing, actually has a great advertisement on our radar page, and we're really happy to be partnered with them. We are the official weather app of Boston Duck Tours for this
Nice.
year. So you should, before long, see the 1 Degree Outside duck boat rolling around town, believe it or not. And so we're happy to provide them with operational forecasts each day, and you'll see their logo when you launch the app at the beginning of the day. But the other prong of our business is private forecasts for clients, right?
Yep.
So these are folks and companies and businesses and college campuses and organizations who are losing money on bad weather forecasts. And we look at this and say, there's an opportunity here to make a big difference. And we've been doing that, haven't we?
100%. We've been saving most of our clients 41% on average.
That's the average savings
That's the
over their
average
previous
savings.
weather providers. So it's
Compared to not to trash the mainstream media, but watching the morning forecast on TV, you're providing something that's more, what is it, granular?
Specific, for whatever client we have, it's very pinpoint, right? So it's like a little microclimate. So it's not a more general, all of the region forecast. We are pinpointing
Right.
it to the exact spot and the exact needs of our clients.
And that's
So if
really-
they're in Acton versus in Auburn, they're getting
Right.
totally different
Exactly.
things from you.
Totally different. And you say, well, can't you do that with an app? Yes, our app does that, as a matter of fact. In fact, we've met with folks who are thinking about, oh, would I like to hire you? And we show them what we have in the app, and they go, well, I can just get that for free. And we say, you can. But what we do to take it to the next level is we have we call it the 1 Degree Outside forecast engine. But basically, we have our own proprietary data that we've built. On top of that, we're doing post-processing, and we do use AI in that process, but the way that we use it is to fine-tune and tailor exactly to the location. So let's say you're on the east side of a hill, and your weather is always different than the west side of the hill. We've got you covered. You get that kind of improvement. So when we say that 41% savings, that's not over not having weather. That's over their previous weather provider,
Right.
which is usually one of these major national companies. We're able to save them 40% over that, which when you talk about municipalities with $1.2, $1.4 million budgets,
a
you're
lot of
near a
money.
half
Drivers
half
and
a million
equipment
saved.
and salt
Yeah,
and who knows
100%.
what else.
So that's actually when folks will ask, what's your business model? That's the secret
That's the
sauce,
sauce.
just so you know that's happening in the whole other prong. You don't see that in the app.
So something you just said leads me perfectly into the next question. And actually, this question is from my daughter.
Oh, great.
Love it.
She likes to listen to the podcast here and there,
Oh, that's
whatever.
great.
And I mentioned to
What's
her
her name?
Avery.
Hi, Avery. That's awesome.
And
Excellent.
I mentioned to her that you guys were coming in today. And so she really wanted to know how long it actually takes to create a forecast. And then sort of the follow-up to that is there a fundamental difference in the underlying data that you use now versus what you
So
had
great.
on TV before? And you already kind of answered that you have a
old's Avery?
proprietary model. She's going to be 11.
Avery,
She's hired.
This is an amazing
coming on
question
board.
from an almost 11-year-old.
Do you intern middle schoolers?
Seriously.
Hold on, let me give the answer. We don't do internships, but you can come on in and take a tour, and we'll be happy to show you all around the studio. That's right. No, I'll let you take
But
that
yeah, how
one
long
first.
it takes to create a forecast is if you have to have one out every single day.
I would say it depends, right, on what we're forecasting. So there is a difference between if we're making a forecast specifically for a client or if we're doing something like a monthly forecast.
Yep,
The
that's a good
length
point.
of time varies depending on what you're doing.
I wasn't even thinking of monthly forecasting.
Oh,
Right?
no, we
Oh,
do,
yeah, we do
monthly,
that,
absolutely.
seasonal,
So one of the things you have to keep in mind, too, is that we're already making a forecast for all of New England and the Northeast for the videos, right? So that's going to take a couple of hours right out of the gate to answer the question directly for Avery. And then when you're going to fine-tune that for private partners, that's going to be more of a kind of a fine-tuned process that we bring in the AI for. So that's going to be, honestly, shorter because we've already entered the human-made forecast that took a couple hours to build.
And then you're tweaking and,
That's
and
Exactly.
fine-tuning
That's
that.
right. The question that Avery asked about our data is a really great one, too. So, yes, when we were working at TV stations, you have the general forecast data that either comes from the American government and the supercomputers there, the European government, the Canadian government, right? What we're doing is we're actually taking in over 120 different pieces of data from across the world, and then we're figuring out which ones are performing best and worst. And we take the worst performing out, we put the best performing in, so we can get the best solution. That's what we call our 1 degree of type prediction system. And then from there, we can make our forecast, put it into the forecast engine, and really get down, kind of drill down.
It's fascinating.
Because
it's
to
really
Avery's point, there is so much data.
Yes.
So this is the best way
Yes,
to be
and-
able to pick and choose what's best.
That's
and be able
right.
to put
yeah.
it into it.
This is a continuation of it. Always drove me crazy, and you'll still see it when you'll see, on TV or you'll see on the internet. Well, the American model says this.
Right, and they show
Or
the
the
spaghetti
Euro.
lines
Right.
or whatever
Yes.
else.
Oh,
It's-
it made my head want to explode, and I never did it because there are hundreds of different varieties and versions of computer forecast models that are out there. It isn't just one for America and one for
Sure.
Europe. So why make it seem that simple if it's not, right?
Okay.
So we try to take it, bring everything together, and then boil it down
Tweak
to
it
something
from
that's
there.
most specific.
So I sort of threatened before we got started that I would math nerd out for a moment.
I love
Yes,
this.
please
I love
do.
this.
So I studied actually a bit of chaos theory
You
in my,
did.
in my
All
younger
right.
days. Yep.
Excellent.
Cool.
Which, for the listeners, is a branch of math that sort of explores this idea of sensitive dependence on initial conditions.
That's right.
In other words, that in a chaotic system, even one small change could greatly impact something else. And I think an example of that might ring true for a lot of people is you're trying to drive to work, or even you're just trying to leave your house.
Yep.
Maybe there was an accident on the interstate.
Yep.
Now everybody's gotten off the interstate, and now they've all found your little side street.
Yeah, that's
And all of a
right.
sudden, there's a traffic jam in front of your house, and you have no idea why, because this one incident over here
Yeah.
caused this traffic jam on your street that you
Great
were not
analogy.
expecting.
I might have to steal
Right?
that down the line. I'll give
Take
you
it.
credit when
Take
I do.
it.
That's it. That's great.
So I guess the question for me is, with weather, which is literally a global, chaotic, dynamic system, how do you even approach forecasting where you know that even the slightest shift in one of these variables, in one of the many models that you're looking at, could have such drastic differences? Like you mentioned, the 1.5 to the 13 inches of snow.
Love this question. So do you want to take it? You want me to start out with it?
Well, all I will say is that when I go to visit schools, I say to the kids, imagine you have like this little bundle of air and you just go whew, and you blow it and it's already across the room. Put that on a global scale
Right.
and imagine how it impacts weather. It's pretty fascinating how far technology has come. That's all I'll say.
No, yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I look at the fact that we are in this this spot in society right now where it's amazing. You see it on social media all the time that we question science, right? And we question science and say, well, but is it really because of this, right? So here's the amazing thing about weather that a lot of people don't realize. The laws of physics are the laws of physics.
Right.
They
but
aren't
the
changing.
outcome can be different.
That's right. So when I talk about how we pull in 120 different pieces of data, it's important to note that doesn't mean that those 120 plus different solutions are coming from different physics equations. Physics is physics. There are laws that govern science. That doesn't change. So you say, well, then why is the forecast wrong so much, right? because of exactly what you're talking about. Those 120 different solutions come because if you tweak the initial condition just a little bit, that can change the outcome dramatically when you get 5 or 10 days down the line. Where we're really seeing this, and you're going to see worse forecasts in the short term. And the reason I say that is because, without in any way, shape, or form getting political, with the fact that funding and staffing has gone down now with regard to some of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, there are fewer weather balloons that are getting launched, significantly fewer.
Which gives you less
Data
Absolutely.
and initial
day-to-day intel.
In New England, no longer, first we had Chatham, the weather balloon site out of Chatham got eroded due to beach erosion, never got replaced. Then we had Gray, Maine just had to discontinue their weather balloons. So what this means is, to cover all of New England, there's a weather balloon out of Albany and a weather balloon out of Caribou, Maine, up in the northern tip of Maine. That's
a
it.
lot of space in
That's your New
between.
England
And that's
weather
supposed to
balloons.
cover Boston.
That's everything in
Everything.
between is not sampled in the atmosphere. So the reason that becomes important is because of your chaos theory.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Sampled in the atmosphere. What is being sampled
Okay,
up there?
great. So you have a weather balloon.
I hope you don't have anywhere to go, because this is fascinating.
I'm
and
glad
gonna
you
keep
like
going.
This is good.
You have a weather balloon. You launch it up. As it goes up, there's an electronic package on there that's recording temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, everything you need to know about
Wind
the
speed,
atmosphere. Wind speed,
direction.
direction.
Okay.
Okay.
As it goes up to
As it
different
goes
levels.
up. And it goes up until that balloon pops, which is basically up into the stratosphere. All right?
Okay.
And then it comes back down. And by the way, the whole way down, it's
Also
recording data.
recording.
That's
Okay.
right, the entire way down. So what we do is we limit the effect of chaos theory by putting more of these up, because now you have a greater sampling, so you know better
So your
what's
initial
going on.
conditions are more accurate.
That's
Correct.
right. Now, if you take a bunch of those out because you just cut staffing so substantially, you suddenly don't have those balloons going up anymore, and now the door is open to a tremendous increase in your chaos theory and your differences in initial condition. You're not measuring them. Think about, you could have a whole thunderstorm complex between Albany and Caribou, Maine. Doesn't get measured by any balloon or sounding that goes up there.
So when you guys make your first billion, to reach a critical mass, how many of these balloons would you personally want to have in launch over New England to actually feel more accurate?
Close. Yeah,
No,
we
we're
were
nowhere
nowhere close. It would be great. And there's been other things that have been tried. For example, satellite soundings, where satellites can kind of interpret what's happening through the atmosphere, but you have issues with cloud cover and all
just
that.
not as accurate.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly.
Like, do you
what's
need
gonna
like
happen.
10 of these in New England? Do you need 50 of them? Do
You
you
need
just
as
need
many-
like
as many as you can get.
I was going to say, there's
Seriously.
no limit. I feel
Yeah,
like.
because anything that happens between sites. So maybe another example would be surface observing. So weather stations at, let's say, airports, for example, there's still, what would you say, 30 to 50 miles between each one, depending on the site?
depending on the site, depending on the state. In
So-
between each observing, we have one at Logan Airport, and then we have one in Worcester. We have one in Hanscom. Think about the amount,
Right.
of space in between Boston and
Hyper-local
128 and
weather that's in that
495,
space in
definitely.
between.
100%.
That's right. So a lot of, what we've seen already is there's a lot of companies that are trying to fill those gaps with various types of technology. The interesting thing with that is that is that the direction that we end up going as a nation, because if we end up short-staffed on the government side of things, private sector will have to come in and fill those voids. The interesting part of that becomes, is the data then for sale rather than freely available, which
Right.
has always been a hallmark
And
of
it becomes
America
another
to do that.
subscription model.
That's correct. And that impacts research at universities and so many other things. So
This is why you need to use your own first billion to do it, because then you're going to make the subscription
exactly
money.
correct. You got it. You hit the nail on the head.
So then you mentioned that weather forecasting might be a little less accurate in the short term.
Yep.
Is there kind of a certainty metric or percentage that you can apply to weather forecasts today, where maybe 10 days out it's 10% accurate, but one day out it's 90% accurate? Is there anything like that, or is it completely fluid?
Nope. There are answers to that. Absolutely. You want
You
to
take
take
that
it?
one, because I
Okay.
think you have the temperature.
Yeah, so basically,
specifics.
we look at something like this winter, for example, and we did forecasts regularly for partners both in Boston and also in Worcester. And so what we did is, that's great because there are climate sites in both of those places, meaning we can verify and see how we did exactly, right?
Okay.
So 3 days out, we were an inch or less error on snow. So you could ask us how much it was going to snow in 3 days, would tell you within an inch, which you're not really finding anywhere else.
That's very reasonable for shoveling or anything else.
Yes. Wind gusts, all the wind that we had over this winter and spring, average wind gust error for us was 4 miles an hour, 4.4 miles an hour. So you can get very specific. The 10-day forecast during stable seasons like summer or winter is about 6.5 degree error at 10 days out. During the fall and the spring, where we get the big cold fronts and all that, that's going to be more like 8 degree error. But even that, you look and say, that's actually really helpful if you're trying to plan energy load or anything along those lines. Would you agree?
And has improved a lot compared to even just, 5, 10, obviously, 20 years ago.
Right. Totally. Yeah, we hear from a lot of folks who've watched weather for decades and say, it was better back in the 1970s than it is now.
Was it though?
No, the numbers show that that's absolutely not true.
Well, the only place I ever was that the weather forecasts were always accurate was I lived in Arizona for a number of years. And it was just sunny and 100 for the next 8 days. That was it.
That's it.
Never wrong.
Nope, never.
So let's move a little bit to the community, and I understand that you guys have a program where you go out to schools and you've interacted with hundreds of thousands of students through this. Tell us a little bit about this program, what that is, and why it's important.
So we bring enrichment programs to school, and this is so fun. It's about inspiring the next generation of scientists. I remember being a kid and loving math and science and loving, STEM programs. And I feel like particularly where we are right now as a country, it's really important to, get these young kids excited about math and science and weather. So we do a whole program. We bring our lightning ball and our tornadoes in a bottle.
Wait, you have a lightning ball?
Yes.
We do.
I want a lightning ball. Where do I get a lightning ball?
You can come to our office.
That's right. Avery's going to get a tour.
That's right. Exactly. She's got to get to have the lightning ball too.
So that's really something special that we get to do is go visit these schools. Anywhere from kindergartners up to college age students. We've done adult group visits too, to bring kind of math and science to life.
Yeah, and Danielle has really led the charge on that since we've launched 1 Degree Outside. I'm usually in the office and working on different things, and Danielle is always out in the community. How often would you say? At least once a week on average?
At least once a week.
And it's amazing. You do such a great
They just
job.
it makes me so happy to see all these kids. It could be a small group of just one classroom, or it's an entire school of several hundred kids that are sitting there, and I just look at their faces and their eyes are popping open when we start to talk about the science and meteorology and everything behind it. So it brings me a lot of joy to be able to do that, and hopefully spark some interest for our future scientists.
It's funny because I always defer to Danielle on it because she's done such a great job. It's become her baby, and does a wonderful job with it. I can tell you that for me, I look at this and I say America used to be number 1 in science, technology, engineering, and math. When you go back to the 1960s, we fell to 24th. And so, when you look at, if you're like we are, parents of kids, right? We have to accept the fact that we are among the dumbest generation of Americans relative to the rest of the world, not relative to history, but relative to the rest of the world when it comes to STEM education. Right. And so the issue with that, and again, you see this in so many different arenas, right, is that we have this certainty and we feel like we know better, but we actually, relative to a lot of other developed nations, don't when it comes to science. And
I would challenge one thing that you said. I don't necessarily think we're the dumbest. We might just be the least educated. And that goes back to what you were saying. These kids are not dumb. They're incredibly smart.
No.
And this is that outreach that says, hey, instead of sort of choosing the dumber path, you can choose the smarter path.
Yes.
And I think that wealth of smartness is still there.
Yes.
100%.
Right? And I apologize.
But no, I don't mean it that way. But I think it's a great segue into this idea of lifting them up rather than letting it continue down this path of sort of dumbing down.
Yes. That is exactly what we're talking about. So, for example, we will hear from folks oftentimes who will see, plane exhaust in the sky, which is called a contrail, a condensation trail, and are convinced that
that's what that stands for?
Condensation trail, yes. Convinced this is mind-altering chemicals that are being released by the government, and that we are under the control of folks because of these chemical sprays. And look, the science behind that is very determined. It's very clear what it is. It has to do with relative humidity, vapor pressure, dust particles that are up there called condensation nuclei. But we don't, as a society, we haven't been educated on these scientific principles.
So we think of it as the same thing as the dark soot that comes out of a truck.
That's correct.
Even though it's really not.
That's correct. And so it's this danger zone that we're in. And so you're right, the word choice that I had may not have been great, but it's this danger zone that we are in currently, where we either are going to accept and understand that we need to raise our level of STEM education and awareness, or we're not going to remain competitive on a national level. Right. And so I love that you're doing this because you are out there inspiring it.
Well, it's funny because our daughter did a little science program at her school over the winter, and she made a tornado in a bottle. So we bring that to the school visit too. And I tell this story, and I say she ran out and she said, "Mom, look what I made!" And I always ask the kids, I say, "Do you think she knew what it was?" And they say, "No." I said, "Of course she did. She's got parents who are meteorologists." But the somewhat disturbing part was there was a little boy behind her, and he said, "Dad, look what I made!" And he goes, "Wow, look at that hurricane!" It was a tornado in a bottle, but it was just slightly eye-opening. It's like, okay, there's still some confusion about many things, about contrails, about the difference between a hurricane and a tornado. We don't watch much TV, but we watch sometimes to just relax at night. And there was a show the other day, and someone was talking about how, auras and being, and how that, she heard that maybe you can control the weather yourselves. Remember that part?
Oh, yeah, sure. There's a lot of people who think that. Yeah.
So back to your point, it's education is key.
Yep. Right. Yep. We're in a bit of a danger zone right now. So
that's a good way to put it, danger zone.
So our hope is that we can at least do our small part, whether it's through our podcast that we do, whether it's through our videos that we do, to try and kind of bring that science and weather education awareness to all ages.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, we're going to jump to a segment we call What Would You Choose? And so this is a little rapid fire thing.
Okay.
And the interesting thing I think now is going to be, are you going to answer these as your parent people selves, or are you going to answer them as your professional weather selves, right?
Okay.
But no wrong answers. It's just kind of a quick,
All right.
What would you prefer? A nor'easter or a heat wave?
Heat wave.
Nor'easter.
See, I was thinking nor'easter because I was thinking you were going to go professional. Like, this is more interesting and challenging. You talk about being on the beach and watching it happen, but you want the heat wave, huh?
I think I just really like.
You want the nice sunny days where you can just be outside
I lived in Florida
for a little
for
bit?
a couple years. That was nice, having the heat and humidity. I like it.
I wonder if you'd answer different in August.
I know, I might. It's true.
That's what I always tell my wife when she complains. She's like, I promise I won't complain in the summer when it's 90. She loves it. So.
I love it.
Are you more early birds or night owls?
Neither.
Neither. You're just in the middle. I'm an early bird.
You're just up all the time?
I guess night owl. I don't like getting up early.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm an early bird. I love getting up early, seeing the sunrise, crisp air in the morning.
See, I was thinking early bird because you have to get up and get your stuff out.
Yep, that's right.
I said I don't like getting up
Yeah,
early,
exactly.
but I do
You
get
don't
up
like it,
early.
but you do have to.
It's just more painful for one of us than the other.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.
Now, outside of the spaghetti models we talked about,
Yeah.
are you more data-driven or are you more gut instinct?
Oh.
Data-driven.
Data-driven when it comes to professional.
Yeah.
Gut when it comes to personal.
Okay.
Oh, good
Yeah.
answer.
Well, and I think you'd agree,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to make that divide, right? You have to know when to be data-driven and when to be gut-driven.
That's a good point. Is your favorite part of your day when you're behind the camera or when you're behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
All
funny.
that time in the camera and really
that
what
was
you
fun.
prefer doing is the
Absolutely.
cool behind the scenes stuff.
Love it. Love it. And that's not to say we don't enjoy the camera part. Obviously, we both made a career out of that. But I think we both, you've kind of heard us talk about today. We both really love kind of thinking about new ways to construct things and new ways to be able to posit things for folks. And so doing that happens, most of the good work for that happens behind the scenes. Yeah.
Nice. And you both answered that very quickly. Yeah. You just knew. This is my answer.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, last one. This is a bit to the dynamic of the husband and wife duo working together
Ooh,
too.
fun.
Divide and conquer or tackle as a team?
Tackle as a team.
Yeah, and I would say both. Tackle as a team is what we do for whenever there's a big task that needs to be done. It's always tackle as a team.
Although you're right.
When there's smaller stuff, we're divide and conquer. We may go, there'd be certain days we may go the whole day without barely talking to one another because you're either in your office or in the studio.
Even just yesterday
Yep.
when we were both at the office, but
Yep.
I was in the studio part, he was doing business stuff,
Yep.
and then I was like, all right, I'm leaving to get the kid. See you later.
Yep.
And
But when it comes to any type of major steering focus for our company, that's always tackle as a team. And that's going to be that way, right? We just recently had a new member of the team come on board, Vice President of Brand Integration, Annie Peters. She was for 30 years at NECN and NBC Boston doing the VP of Sales there, and now has come on board with us as Brand Integration. And we make sure we're all in a text group together. All the ideas that we have, we're bouncing off her, vice versa. So I think that for as long as we've got our company going, which we hope is a long time, that'll always be part of
That
it.
collaborative approach to
100%.
things.
That's it. It's always better that way.
I love it. You guys did great. You were like really quick on the answers. Sometimes we get I'm not
like
sure.
waiting.
Yeah, I like both. But no, you guys were like, this is my answer.
That's
you
it.
guys understand what rapid fire means.
Absolutely. We were ready to go.
All right. One more segment
Yep.
that we do, and
Sure.
this is the one where we give you a bit of homework.
Okay.
And we
Yes.
ask you to bring or share with us something, could be a memory, could be something material, could be whatever, that brings you inspiration.
You
gonna
got
get
something.
mine out, aren't
Oh, you put it in your bag, so I haven't even seen this. This is gonna be.
Oh, am I
All
She
right.
did not. By the way, she did not tell me what it was that Danielle was bringing.
Oh, so
I'm,
only Danielle is going
that's
to be
it.
inspired
This is
today.
exciting.
Okay.
Well,
Did you bring something
I brought
too?
something too.
Okay.
Oh,
I brought
okay.
two
I did.
things.
I did.
Ooh.
So the first is a little
Oh.
heart compass.
I've seen
Do you
that above our
remember
kitchen
this?
sink.
Follow your heart. I actually gave this to Matt. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
many
You
years
keep
ago.
that right above the sink all the time.
Yep,
And you
but it
said
has-
compass?
Yep, it has a little
nice.
compass on the back, but
It says follow your heart.
follow your heart. I just feel like it's a reminder that I see every day that's on our windowsill, and it speaks to everything in life, right? From relationships to our business. Just got to follow your heart. The other thing is a little metal piece that says joy on it.
Aw.
And this reminds me of my friend Christine, who passed away from cancer last year, and my son's son, who passed away from pediatric brain cancer.
Cousin's son, yeah.
Cousin's son. Terrible stuff, right? But they were both such about joy. And I just feel like it's an important reminder for perspective.
Right.
From
Just to carry
from-
that.
Yes,
with
for
you.
everyth So I keep both of these on the windowsill. I keep
Awesome.
them
That's
both there.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So those
That
are the
is
two little things I
beautiful.
brought in.
I love that.
Do you want to change your answer from data-driven and gut instinct
I
over
know.
to gut instinct
right?
more now?
I know. It's true.
That is not at all data-driven.
No,
that
you're
is
right.
beautiful.
Well,
Thank you.
that's the interesting part about us, right? Is that remember I said you have to have that divider between when to be data driven, when to
Yep,
be gut.
you
So
do.
for me, it's funny because I do have a physical thing that's kind of a motivator that I keep, but I can tell you that my two biggest motivators, one is right beside me, which is Danielle, because she is tremendously motivating to become a better person and to continue to be more compassionate and thoughtful.
You're very
The other one I
compassionate.
wear around my neck, which is my cross. So again, not data driven, right? But at the same time, really for me throughout life, God and belief in God has been a really important motivating factor. And then the final thing, and this one you might enjoy. Let's see if I can pull it out of my bag because I did bring it because you asked us to bring for homework. My can of Moxie.
Oh my.
So have you ever had Moxie?
I have not.
Have you ever had Moxie? Anybody behind the scenes?
Yes, I had a
Okay,
sip.
Sydney, you have? No, Eddie hasn't? Okay, so you're going to have to try this. In fact, I dedicate to you my can. No, I dedicate my can of Moxie. So Moxie is
No
a
hard feelings if you
quintessential,
don't like it.
a quintessential New England. No, you have to fake like you like quintessential New England soda. So the word, do you know what the word Moxie means? Like to have Moxie,
Sure.
right? He's got gusto. She's got
You
energy,
can
right?
you can see it right in the picture on the
That's
can.
right. So the word Moxie came from the soda. It
No.
didn't go the other way around. This is a Maine creation here in New England. In fact, there you go. Here we go. Let's see your reaction.
That's good.
You like it?
Yeah.
Great. My thing for me, when I first came to Boston in my 20s, I was scared to death. I was this young guy coming into a big major TV market. So for me, I found a lot of comfort in Moxie because it was a reminder that in order to survive in this industry, you got to have Moxie. You got to have spunk. So I keep these in my office at all
I
times.
never
Yep.
knew that was the reason
That's
why.
why. You
And now
gotta
I'm
have
looking at the
Moxie.
can. It says distinctively different.
That's right. So here we are
Wow.
launching a brand new company that's digital first, that's the first of its kind in New England to do this. And we have to have Moxie in order to make it. So when things get stressful or I'm like, are we going to do this? Are we going to? I crack open that Moxie, I take a sip, and I go, we're good.
It's got like a little like orange soda with root beer kind of
And cough
flavor
syrup.
to it. I'm not
cough
getting the cough syrup,
syrup.
fortunately.
Glad.
Fortunately.
Well, you should look it up, honestly, the Moxie Day in Maine, because there's a whole Moxie Day parade. There's a
We
celebration.
need to go.
It lasts
I feel
all
like
weekend.
we need to go to this
Oh,
then.
I would love to. It's
Okay.
fantastic. If you look it up, you will see.
All
I've
right.
And
got
this
a-
is just available anywhere. I can just go.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Go to your
never even seen
local supermarket. You'll get it. I've got a Ted Williams, an old tin sign in my office. Ted Williams. It says Ted Williams says you should drink Moxie, and it's got him right on there. So it's become a big part of my career and kind of a
I
professional.
love
side
that
of the
because
gut.
I never knew.
What do you think of the hair, Danielle?
It looks good. It's very similar, you know.
Definitely, you've been inspired.
That's right. That's right. So none of our motivation is data driven. So there you go.
There you go. Well, this has been really fun.
It has.
This has been an awesome time. I learned a lot. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I've always enjoyed like this concept of chaos and weather and everything. And you guys do a really nice job of breaking it down and making it tangible and understandable.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
So, no,
We hope that we'll be able to come back in another year or two and be able to show you the big weather empire that's been built.
There
that we
you
hope
go.
will have served the community. 'Cause
new
that
levels
is
of
our-
certainty and everything.
That's right.
100%.
That's right. You know, our big goal, folks say, what's your goal in terms of revenue, in terms of growth? Look, our goal is just to continue to serve the community in a way that will make the community smarter, stronger, better, and more ready for weather. So if we can do that in the next several years, we're going to be thrilled.
And from what I hear, I mean, you know, we see this at the bank as well, is this adaptability, this
100%.
changing environment. Like there's a different method of people interacting with companies now, whether it's banking or whether it's getting your weather forecast. And to have something new and unique for folks, I think is awesome. And I'm inspired by it. So
Thank
Aw,
you very
thanks,
much.
Greg.
We appreciate you having us on.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe and rate our show. The Building Interest podcast is live on all podcast platforms and YouTube. We want to hear what you think of each episode and encourage you to submit your questions that you want us to cover. So please find us on YouTube or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts and comment your thoughts. All opinions expressed by Matt and Danielle Noyes are their own and not the opinions of Leader Bank NA. Leader Bank is not affiliated with 1 Degree Outside. For more information on today's subject, visit leaderbank.com. In addition to past episodes, you can find our Learning Center blog for more insights. This podcast is a production of Leader Bank, an equal housing lender, member FDIC, NMLS number 449250.